Coming up on Network Africa. At least 10 people killed, dozens more appeared trapped in the Democratic Republic of Congo's South Kivu province. From crisis to the classroom, displaced Sudanese children receive education through grassroots initiatives in a Chadian refugee camp. Plus, UK foreign aid cuts revealed, Africa facing the biggest reductions. Hello and welcome to the program today. I'm Layo Olaringe. We begin in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where dozens of people appeared trapped underground after a deadly landslide collapsed multiple mining shafts in South Kivu province. At least 10 people have been killed. 6 have been pulled out alive, with 1 seriously injured since the shafts collapsed in Lomera in the early hours of Sunday. Rescuers have been using their bare hands and basic tools to free miners trapped underground. Volunteer diggers are gathered around the collapse zone, searching for survivors and recovering bodies. Makeshift shelters and heaps of debris, including tree branches, surround the site, a residential area home to many of the miners. The landslide reportedly destroyed 15 mining shafts. The area in South Kivu province has been under the control of M23 rebels since they captured swaths of the DR Congo's mineral-rich east earlier this year. The M23, however, rejected reports that hundreds are trapped underground. Sudan's oil-rich Kordofan region has turned into a major frontline in the war between the army and the rival paramilitary forces as both sides try to gain the upper hand in a conflict that has devastated the vast African state for more than 2 years. Attacks that killed hundreds of civilians earlier this month have shifted attention to the battle for this part of the country. Analysts opine that whoever controls Kordofan effectively controls the country's oil supply, as well as a huge chunk of Sudan. The region is also vital for landlocked South Sudan, as its oil flows through pipelines in Kordofan before being exported. So this has a vested interest in Kordofan's stability. However, the battle for the region, which is made up of 3 states with a population of close to 8 million, has intensified since June, when the army focused on regaining the territory from the Rapid Support Forces after it made significant gains in the preceding 3 months, recapturing the capital Khartoum and neighboring Gezira state, now the agricultural hub of Sudan. In the meantime, a self-initiative has provided an opportunity for Sudanese refugee children to receive an education, and this is in the Adre camp in neighboring Chad, despite the difficult conditions they're living under. The Our Hands for the Country initiative is helping pupils to attend lessons inside straw-built and open-air classrooms, as volunteer teachers lead makeshift sessions under the banner of the initiative. All volunteers say while there is no supporting entity, no organizations or bodies backing it, the youth collect contributions to identify what's lacking and to be able to provide it to the school. The Our Hands for the Country initiative focuses on creating learning spaces and collecting donations to support teachers. Since fighting broke out between the Sudanese army and the RSF in April 2023, more than 20,000 people have been killed and over 33,000 others injured, according to United Nations statistics. Figures from the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR, show that the war in Sudan has displaced around 13 million people, including more than 3.8 million refugees who have fled to neighboring countries. In South Sudan, the United Nations World Food Programme says it has reached over 2 million people with life-saving assistance so far this year. However, a severe funding shortfall threatens ongoing support, placing millions at risk of losing aid. Severe funding shortfalls means WFP can reach just 2.5 million people with regular assistance, and that's only 30% of people facing severe hunger across the country with emergency food assistance. WFP is says it's urgently requiring $274 million I beg your pardon, to maintain support for just the 2.5 million most acutely food insecure through the end of the year, providing only 50% rations to these communities in most cases.
Airdrops like this are obviously the last resort for WFP. But these communities cannot be reached in any other way. There is no access by road, there is no access by river, and so we are left with no option by doing these airdrops or in order to get our life-saving assistance in. And this is truly life-saving. Without this food, people in these communities would die. Across South Sudan, some 8 million people are acutely food insecure, many surviving and relying on WFP assistance. But we are running very short on money right now, and this is forcing us to scale back our support and assistance also in communities facing starvation.
The Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Antonio Guterres, is calling for renewed commitment across the globe for a global transition to renewable energy sources, emphasizing that the shift to clean energy is crucial for tackling climate change and lifting millions out of poverty. Speaking virtually at a climate action event organized by the United Nations in Abuja, here in Nigeria, Mr. Guterres warned that the greatest threat to energy security is fossil fuel, as it leaves people and economies at the mercy of supply disruptions and economic turmoil. He also makes a case for Africa, calling for improved financial investments to tap into its massive potential, as Africa is home to 60% of the world's best solar resources, but has received just 2% of global clean energy investments as at 2024. Our correspondent, Victoria Longjohn, reports.
The need for a push for clean energy investments and its economic gains is the crux of concern at this gathering, convened by the Secretary General of the United Nations. The event puts a spotlight on clean energy, why it matters, and its crucial importance to humanity and social protection.
That's 800 billion more than fossil fuels.
Speaking virtually from the UN House in New York, the Secretary General makes a compelling speech on the economic imperative and opportunities in the transition to renewable energy sources.
Renewables already nearly match fossil fuels in global installed power capacity. And that's just the beginning. Last year, almost all the new power capacity built came from renewables. And every continent on Earth added more renewables capacity than fossil fuels. The clean energy future is no longer a promise, it's a fact.
He also makes a case for Africa.
Despite soaring demand and vast renewables potential, developing countries are being locked out of the energy transition. Africa is home to 60% of the world's best solar resources, but it received just 2% of global clean energy investments last year. Zoom out, and the picture is just a start. In the last decade, only 1 in every 5 clean energy dollars went to emerging and developing countries outside China. To keep the 1.5-degree limit alive and deliver universal energy access, annual clean energy investment in those countries must rise more than fivefold by 2030.
This panel discussion then delves into energy transition in Nigeria and the possible economic gains.
If you look at in Nigeria, for instance, with the fuel subsidy hike, you know how that has impacted your spending on gensets, for instance. That's not going to be the case if you adopt some of these renewable energy technology. So for me, as a finance person, that's the conversation I have whenever I go to forums or fora like this, to just say the unit economics makes more sense.
Dirty energy is not fair. There is high level of inequality. Primary healthcare centers are not powered, but the just transition would ensure fairness, equity, justice. And probably for the first time, this would ensure that as we negotiate treaties around trade and investment, we can see ourselves as partners.
The acceleration towards universal access based on clean energy technologies is indeed the way to go, because finally we begin to recognize that the rural poor and underserved and unserved deserve a focused attention.
The consensus here is that fossil fuel age is failing and the transition to renewable energy is the dawn of a new era. However, stakeholders believe collaboration is essential in achieving universal access to clean energy. From Abuja, Victoria Longjon, Channels Television News.
As the world looks to the continent for the next big leap in travel and investment, Angola is buzzing with energy as it hosts the second UN Tourism and International Civil Aviation Organization Ministerial Conference on Tourism and Air Transport in Africa. How can Africa connect the dots between the skies and its rich tourism potential? From visa policies and open skies to new routes and investment in airports, it's all on the table, and the stakes couldn't be higher. For many African countries, better air connectivity isn't just about tourism, it's about jobs, economic growth, and putting Africa firmly on the global travel map. Our senior correspondent, Kingsley Uranta, who is attending the conference, reports.
A cool, drizzly overcast in Luanda. Delegates to the second UN Tourism went through registration. Once down, they settled in for what promises to be a serious business at 9 o'clock local time. More than 500 participants and 30 African ministers are in attendance. In the face of its population, Africa is nowhere near in realizing its potential in the aviation industry.
Here, not only to share diagnosis, but above all, to think about concrete solutions that respond to Africa's challenges and opportunities in these areas.
It is true that Africa has 18% of world population, but we command only 2% of global air traffic. And this is the real challenge that we are facing today.
In the next couple of days, delegates in this hall will be talking about how to strengthen the policies in Africa's aviation and tourism industries in order to explore and exploit the great potentials that these two sectors hold in the African continent.
And the UN Tourism Agenda, Tourism for Inclusive Growth, recognizes the key importance of both intertwined sectors and identifies travel facilitation, including air connectivity and visas, as essential drivers to boost tourism in Africa.
Most of the participants here are decision makers in their various countries. A synergy between governments and private sector will be needed to ensure a clear blue sky for travelers and good customer experience. The conference later went into panel sessions on the first day. There are 2 more days to go before the second tourism conference will end and the ministerial declaration delivered. Kingsley Uranta, Channels Television News.
We'll take a break now on the program. Still to come. After more than a decade and a lengthy campaign, a Kenyan man on death row in Saudi Arabia is freed from detention. Please stay with us for more details. Welcome back to the program. We continue here in Lagos State, where Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu has unveiled a roadmap to break the barriers hindering the development of women's potential within the state. Governor Sanwo-Olu, who unveiled it contained in the book, says the policy seeks to bridge the existing gender gaps, strengthen financial inclusion, promote digital and technological equity, and advance women's leadership in critical sectors.
Members of the body of permanent secretaries here present.
Creating a new chapter of women inclusion and empowerment is the reason for this gathering at Muson Center in Onikon, Lagos, an initiative put together by the Lagos State Ministry of Women Affairs and Poverty Alleviation to address the unique needs of women and girls in the state.
You're welcome, Your Excellency. Let's keep clapping until the next meeting. Thank you so much, Your Excellency.
The Lagos State government is taking the bull by the horn to domesticate the National Women Economic Empowerment Policy Roadmap with 5 key pillars: agriculture, entrepreneurship, traditional labor market, emerging industries, education, and scale acquisition.
This roadmap offers a well-defined strategy to address the systemic challenges limiting women's participation in the economy, from limited access to finance and skills to gender-based constraints in both traditional and emerging sectors.
Some women in governance call on the Lagos State government to support the special seats bill that will pave way for more women at the national level.
When women are absent from decision-making tables, issues such as maternal health, education access, family care system, and gender-responsive budgeting are often inadequately addressed. I therefore appeal to His Excellency and the distinguished members of the Lagos State House of Assembly to further support the ongoing constitutional reforms, especially the adoption of the special seat bill for women in both the national and state assemblies.
The 5 priority areas outlined highlight where change is mostly needed. These pillars can drive sustainable economic empowerment for women, not only for Lagos, but across Nigeria, and would also promote sustainable development. For UN Women, this roadmap aligns perfectly with our mission to support governments and partners in creating an environment where gender equality is a practical goal, not just an aspiration.
The Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu also says the policy roadmap reflects government's commitment to gender equality and inclusive growth for all citizens.
We're not just launching a roadmap, we're actually taking an initiative that will reflect on our administration's unwavering commitment at ensuring that gender equality and inclusive economic growth is not just something that we're verbalizing, it's something that we're putting action into. We believe that this participatory approach will help to set the context and will help to ensure that women in Lagos continue to have a pride of place, continue to ensure that you take your rightful role in our social, cultural, and economic realities.
Mr. Governor's going to cut it. Are we ready? W. E.
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 Put your hands together. Congratulations to Lagos.
With the launch of the Lagos Women Economic Empowerment Policy Roadmap, issues of systemic challenges limiting women's participation in decision-making will gradually become a thing of the past in the state.
Well, our next report is on the drama that ensued around the premises of the National Assembly as the suspended lawmaker representing Kogi Central, Senator Natasha Akpoti-Oduaghan, was denied access into the National Assembly. Our correspondent, Kayla Megwa, has more.
Fresh from a one-week break, lawmakers returned to legislative duties, but not oblivious to the chaotic scenes that played out outside the gates of the National Assembly. Inside the chamber, where the President of the Senate presides over plenary, the contrast between the serenity within and the commotion outside is palpable. But proceedings progress uninterrupted, with no comment on the matter. The Senate leader begins with an announcement.
I want to inform that by the grace of God, tomorrow, Wednesday, this Senate will be taking a special motion as well to honor the late President Muhammadu Buhari. And distinguished colleagues will also have a chance to make contributions in that regard.
The President of the Senate then clarifies recent concerns on social media over the creation of additional states following a personal explanation raised by Senator Abdul Ningi.
The main committee is yet to even received nor evaluate any report.
There are proposals for state creation, well over 42 or so, but not one has reached a stage where we can even say we have finished zonal deliberations or even finished national deliberation and then transmitted to state houses. The processes of making amendments or alterations to the Nigerian Constitution are very laborious and very stringent. So please, the public should be aware, as raised by Senator Ningi, that no state has been created by this august assembly.
The Senate also considered and approved the 2025-2026 external borrowing plan of $21.5 billion presented by President Bola Tinubu for consideration after the submission of a report.
The committee, in this detailed report, identify ministries by ministry, agencies by agents of the government that is taking what in this borrowing plan document that we have. Mr. President, on that note, we can say that the budget 2025 implementation can now commence in full. Mr. President, this needs specification. How much goes to in each?
Meanwhile, for the fourth consecutive time, the Senate has summoned the Group Chief Executive Officer of NNPC Limited, Mr. Bayo Ojulari, to appear before its Public Accounts Committee over alleged financial infractions amounting to 210 trillion naira. And this latest absence has prompted fresh concerns among lawmakers as they prepare to go on recess on Wednesday, vowing to invoke all legal powers available before it to compel his appearance. From the National Assembly, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
The UK government has revealed details of its plans to cut foreign aid, and the support for children's education and women's health in Africa is facing the biggest reductions. Back in February, the British government had said it would slash foreign aid spending by 40%, from 0.5% of gross national income to 0.3%, to increase its defense spending to 2.5% after pressure from the US. A Foreign Office report and impact assessment shows the biggest cuts this year will come in Africa, with less spent on women's health and water sanitation, with increased risks of disease and death. Aid charities have criticized the move, saying the cuts will impact the world's most vulnerable people. A Kenyan man on death row in Saudi Arabia for more than a decade has been released after a lengthy campaign to save him from execution. The Kenyan Foreign Affairs Ministry says Stephen Moyanko was released under a judicial decree. His execution had been postponed multiple times following intervention by Kenyan officials. Moyanko was working in Saudi Arabia when he was convicted of murdering a Yemeni colleague in 2011. The crime carries the death penalty, but after protracted negotiations, the victim's family agreed to accept compensation. Saudi Arabia follows Islamic law, which states that the death penalty or the death sentence can be commuted if the deceased family accepts a compensation known as diya. Kenyan media reports that the family had received $1 million earlier this year in a payment made by the government and a charity, the Muslim World League. And that's it on the program for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Olarinde.